A meteor shower.
What we call a global killer. Nothing would survive, not even bacteria.
The United States government just asked us to save the world. Anybody want to say no?
Think we'll get hazard pay at it?
You have 12 days.
You stick that in me, I'm gonna stab you in the heart.
When people talk about the golden age of large-scale disaster blockbusters, one film that always finds its way into the conversation is Armageddon, the explosive 1998 science fiction adventure directed by Michael Bay. Released during a time when Hollywood was fascinated with world-ending threats and spectacular visual effects, the film captured audiences with its combination of emotional storytelling, over-the-top action, and a high-stakes premise built around a simple but terrifying idea. What if humanity had only a few weeks to stop the end of the world? Starring Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton, and Ben Affleck, the movie blends intense spectacle with a surprisingly heartfelt narrative about sacrifice, family, and the resilience of ordinary people when faced with an extraordinary crisis. The story begins with a quiet but ominous sense that something is wrong in space. Small pieces of debris begin striking Earth in unexpected places, hinting that a much larger disaster is approaching. Scientists at NASA soon make a horrifying discovery. A gigantic asteroid, roughly the size of the state of Texas, is on a direct collision course with Earth. If it hits the planet, the impact will trigger global destruction on a scale far beyond anything humanity has ever faced. Entire continents could burn, the atmosphere would fill with dust and fire, and civilization as we know it would end. The timeline makes the situation even more terrifying. Humanity has less than a month before the asteroid reaches Earth. Inside NASA headquarters, the responsibility of managing the crisis falls on the shoulders of a determined government official named Dan Truman, played by Billy Bob Thornton. Dan Truman and the scientists working with him quickly realize that conventional weapons will not be enough to stop an object of that size. Blowing it apart from the outside could simply create multiple massive fragments that would still devastate the planet. The only possible solution is far more dangerous and complicated. The asteroid must be drilled deep into its core, and a nuclear device must be planted inside it to split it apart from within, pushing the two halves away from Earth's path. There is just one problem. NASA's astronauts do not know how to operate the type of deep-core drilling equipment needed for the mission. Time is running out, and training astronauts to become expert drillers would take far too long. So the agency makes a bold and unconventional decision. Instead of turning astronauts into drillers, they will train drillers to become astronauts. That decision leads them to one man who is considered the best deep-core driller in the world, Harry Stamper, played by Bruce Willis. Harry Stamper is a tough, experienced oil driller who runs an offshore oil operation and has spent years mastering the dangerous craft of drilling deep beneath the Earth's surface. He's practical, stubborn, and fiercely protective of his crew. When NASA approaches him with the unbelievable news about the asteroid and asks him to lead the mission, Harry quickly realizes the magnitude of what they are asking. The job is not just dangerous, it's practically suicidal. But he also understands that if someone doesn't try, billions of people on Earth will die. Harry agrees to help on one condition. He wants to bring his own drilling team with him. These are the people he trusts, the men who have spent years working beside him in some of the most extreme conditions imaginable. Among them is A.J. Frost, played by Ben Affleck, a talented but somewhat reckless young driller who also happens to be secretly in love with Harry's daughter. Their complicated relationship adds another emotional layer to the story, because Harry is not only preparing to face a world-ending mission, but also dealing with the idea that the young man he doesn't entirely trust might become part of his family. Once the team is assembled, NASA begins the nearly impossible task of transforming these roughneck oil workers into astronauts. The training sequences become some of the most entertaining and memorable moments in the film. The drillers, who are used to working with massive industrial equipment and improvising solutions in dangerous situations, struggle to adapt to the rigid structure and discipline of astronaut training. They clash with NASA's procedures, question the engineers' decisions, and constantly test the patience of the scientists trying to prepare them for spaceflight. Despite the chaos, something important begins to happen during this training period. The drillers start to gain a basic understanding of space travel, while the NASA staff slowly begins to appreciate the practical experience and problem-solving instincts the drillers bring with them. The film emphasizes that this mission will only succeed if both groups learn to trust each other. Science, engineering, and raw human determination must work together if the planet is going to survive. As the launch date approaches, the tension builds steadily. The world is slowly becoming aware of the looming catastrophe. News reports show meteor fragments striking cities and oceans, serving as grim reminders that the asteroid is drawing closer. Governments begin preparing emergency responses, while millions of people watch the sky, uncertain whether humanity will survive the coming disaster. Eventually, the day of the mission arrives. 2 space shuttles are launched, carrying the drilling teams and their equipment into orbit. From there, they begin the long journey toward the massive asteroid racing through space. The scale of the object becomes clear as the spacecraft approach it. The asteroid is not just a rock, it is an enormous, jagged landscape drifting through the darkness of space, large enough to contain mountains, valleys, and unstable surfaces. Landing on the asteroid proves far more dangerous than anyone expected. The surface is chaotic and unpredictable, and the gravity is barely strong enough to hold the astronauts down. As the crews begin setting up their drilling operation, they encounter one obstacle after another. Mechanical failures, unstable terrain, and unexpected geological structures threaten to derail the mission at every step. Meanwhile, back on Earth, NASA monitors every development with growing anxiety. The timeline is becoming tighter, and the smallest delay could mean the difference between success and extinction. The film constantly cuts between the tense drilling operation on the asteroid and the worried faces inside the Mission Control Center, reinforcing how fragile the entire plan truly is. The drilling itself becomes a race against time. Harry and his team push their equipment to its limits, battling both the hostile environment and the knowledge that billions of lives depend on their success. The asteroid's structure turns out to be far more complex than predicted, making the drilling process slower and more dangerous than planned. Every meter they descend into the rock feels like a victory, but the clock is always ticking. During these moments, the film also focuses on the emotional stakes of the mission. The characters are not just anonymous astronauts, they are fathers, friends, and partners who know they might never return home. Harry, in particular, carries the weight of knowing that his daughter could lose him forever. His relationship with AJ evolves as the mission progresses, shifting from suspicion and rivalry to a reluctant respect. As the story approaches its climax, the tension reaches an almost unbearable level. The drilling operation finally reaches the depth required to plant the nuclear device. But even then, the mission is far from over. Someone must stay behind to manually detonate the bomb after the others escape, ensuring that the asteroid splits apart at the right moment. This final decision becomes the emotional heart of the film. The characters are forced to confront the possibility of sacrificing their own lives to save the entire planet. It is a moment that transforms the story from a spectacle-driven disaster film into something more personal and heroic. The idea that ordinary workers, people who spent their lives drilling for oil, could become the ones who save humanity gives the movie its lasting emotional impact. The film's climax delivers the kind of dramatic intensity that director Michael Bay became famous for. Explosions, desperate last-minute escapes, and the vast emptiness of space combine to create a powerful finale that emphasizes both the scale of the threat and the courage of the people trying to stop it. The asteroid, once an unstoppable force heading toward Earth, becomes the stage for one final act of human determination. When the dust settles, the story leaves audiences reflecting on themes that go beyond the spectacle of destruction and survival. Armageddon is ultimately about sacrifice, loyalty, and the idea that heroism can come from unexpected places. The drillers are not polished astronauts or military heroes. They are rough, imperfect individuals who step forward because they are the only ones capable of doing the job. Another reason the film remains memorable is the strong chemistry among its cast. Bruce Willis anchors the story with a performance that balances toughness and vulnerability, portraying Harry Stamper as a man who carries enormous responsibility but never loses his humanity. Ben Affleck brings youthful energy to the role of AJ, while Billy Bob Thornton provides a steady presence as the government official trying to hold the entire mission together from Earth. The movie also became known for its powerful emotional moments, especially those involving Harry's daughter, who must watch the mission unfold from Earth, knowing that her father may never come home. These scenes help ground the massive disaster story in something deeply human. Even while the fate of the entire planet hangs in the balance, the film never forgets that the most important stakes are often personal ones. Beyond its story and characters, Armageddon stood out in 1998 for its visual effects and large-scale action sequences. The film embraced the blockbuster style that Michael Bay would become famous for: sweeping camera movements, dramatic lighting, explosive action, and a sense that every moment must feel larger than life. At the same time, it mixed those visuals with humor and emotional storytelling, creating a movie that appealed to a wide range of audiences. The cultural impact of the film extended beyond the theater as well. Its soundtrack became extremely popular, especially the song "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing," performed by Aerosmith, which played during some of the film's most emotional scenes, and quickly became one of the most recognizable songs associated with the movie soundtrack. The music helped amplify the film's emotional tone, turning key moments into unforgettable cinematic memories. Over the years, Armageddon has continued to spark discussions among fans and critics about disaster movies and the ways Hollywood portrays large-scale global threats. Some viewers appreciate it primarily for its thrilling action and visual spectacle, while others connect more deeply with its emotional core and themes of sacrifice. Either way, the film remains one of the most recognizable examples of late 1990s blockbuster filmmaking. In retrospect, the movie represents a very specific moment in Hollywood history when studios were pushing the limits of visual effects in large-scale storytelling. Films about asteroids, alien invasions, and climate disasters captured the imagination of audiences who wanted to experience the thrill of seeing the world nearly end, while also watching humanity find a way to survive. Even decades after its release, the story of a group of unlikely heroes traveling into space to save the Earth continues to resonate with viewers. There is something timeless about the idea that ordinary people, when faced with an extraordinary challenge, can rise to the occasion and accomplish something incredible. That belief lies at the center of Armageddon, giving the film a sense of hope even in the face of global destruction. In the end, the movie leaves audiences with a simple but powerful message. No matter how overwhelming a crisis may seem, human courage, cooperation, and sacrifice can still make the difference between disaster and survival. Through its combination of explosive action, heartfelt emotion, and unforgettable characters, Armageddon tells a story about the end of the world that ultimately becomes a celebration of the strength and resilience of humanity itself.